Hello and welcome back to the TCM YouTube channel where our county previews are progressing once more, and this time it is the turn of Notts, and joining me for this is Samuel Bruning. Sam, thanks for joining us. First of all, how are you and how much are you looking forward to the 2023 season getting underway?
Well, I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to spending my time thinking about cricket instead of uni work. I'm looking forward to hopefully sitting in the sun at Trent Bridge with a glass of something strong, watching Notts score a load of runs and take a load of wickets. Can't go wrong.
It sounds a bit like heaven to me, but replace Trent Bridge with Old Trafford and Notts for Lancashire. But it's the same, really, isn't it? Let's get straight into it then, and talk a bit about Notts this season. Last year, to begin with, you were promoted from the county championship, obviously the big county championship division 2, obviously the big success there, fifth in the Vitality Blast, and then third in Group A of the knockout Cup, where you then got knocked out to Lancashire. Thank you very much. Let's start with the county championship, obviously back in Division 1 this year. Reflecting on last year's campaign, what are your thoughts going into 2023?
Yeah, I think last year was a real important year for Notts and Red Bull to finally get back up into Div 1, having been slightly messed around with COVID after a decent year in 2021 to then not go back up. But a real contrast, actually. I've double-checked this stats. It is quite remarkable. We went from June 2018 to May 2021 without a win in the Red Bull. And then since then have won 16 out of 26 championship games. So a real important turnaround in fortunes, beating some decent sides, actually, at the end of the 2021 about, and then having a really solid season last year where we were not quite assured of promotion until the very end of the season, but we're doing a decent job at the top of the table throughout the year. And it was really weird, actually, the contrast in form where the runs just kept flowing and the wickets kept being taken. So it was a real strong performance, and it's going to be really exciting to see how much that can be replicated against some stronger opposition in Div 1 this year.
So do you think they'll, going into 2023 in Division 1, obviously lots of good, strong sides there. Do you think Notts will take a lot of confidence and momentum going from, obviously, Division 2 to Division 1? And do you think they'll just try to continue an upward curve?
I think that should be the aim. The calibre of the Notts side is really, really good with both in terms of batting and especially the bowling depth, that Notts should be able to really challenge against some stronger opposition. Whether it'll be quite enough for a promotion push, I don't know. And that might be a bit optimistic, but definitely this is a side that, in terms of, you look at the quality of players, people like Hasif Hamid, Ben Duckett, Stuart Broad, Jake Ball coming back from injury. These are some real strong Red Bull players that is mixed in with some exciting young talent. And that ideally should be enough to at least solidly stay in the division and challenge some of the top teams at a push, hopefully.
Yeah, and you've mentioned one man who I wanted to sort of start there, which is Stuart Broad, of course. It's mouth-watering, isn't it? The prospect of him on an April morning in Nottinghamshire tearing up a batting order of a Div 1 side. How good is it for a Notts fan to have someone like him, of his experience, to be able to, boost the start of the season and get them off to a good start?
It is really important, especially as we know in April when the ball is hooping around. And it didn't as much last year, but we've heard rumours that the Duke's ball is going to do a bit more this season. And Stuart Broad, it is so exciting to watch one of arguably England's second best bowler of all time, steaming in and terrorising county batters, no matter old or young. And that is real promising. But it's actually the attack that surrounds as well, because when we do lose him for the test duty for the rest of the summer, the pace stocks at Notts are so deep. You've got Luke Fletcher, who, despite being a bit older, remains a top quality bowler with the new ball. Dane Patterson, who had a phenomenal year last year as our overseas player. He's back this year. He took an 8 for at one stage, I believe. Jake Ball, as I mentioned, coming back from injury. Brett Hutton coming through the ranks as well. And the signing of Ollie Stone. I mean, I don't know how you fit all of these paces into one team, but it is a mouth-watering prospect for everyone but the opposing batters who are coming to Trent Bridge.
Yeah, I'm sure Lancashire will be able to fend you off fine.
I doubt it.
You mentioned Ollie Stone there. He's obviously your big standout signing, as from Warwickshire, taking him off that side. I mean, I watched a bit of him in action last year, even though he was played by injury. I watched him in the white ball format. He is a gun bowler. He changes the game. How important is that for Notts, having another player with experience and caliber to just make a more well-rounded pace attack?
Yeah, it is absolutely vital. I think with all of these pace bowlers, there is the constant risk of injury in England selection or people losing form, and it's that ability to keep calling on people over and over again who are so high quality. And like I said, I'm relishing a chance to see him because every time you watch him on TV for England, you think this guy should be playing a lot more international cricket, and sadly for injuries, it hasn't happened to him just yet. But the mix of, I always think a bowler is at the best. Obviously, you want the high pace, but that alone is not quite enough. It needs to be mixed with the ability to get movement either in the air or off the pitch and hitting the top off consistently. And Ollie Stone, I think, is someone that does that to a really exciting degree and should complement the Notts lineup really well. I mean, I'm him and Broad coming at you with Dane Patterson as the first change is not an exciting sight for anyone other than the Notts members sat in the pavilion behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Dane Patterson is someone you keep coming back to. So let's talk a bit about him then. Leading wicket taker in the county championship last season. He's been around the Notts side in and about for quite a long time now. Does he add a bit of stability to your side, a bit of experience, and just how would you sum him up as a bowler for maybe people who don't watch much of Notts in the county championship?
Yeah, he's a really fascinating cricketer actually, because I think you've got the flashiness of the Broad, the excitement of Ollie Stone, and Patterson actually is someone that, although South African international, does not get the call-ups that perhaps he deserves. And so you know he's there week in, week out, which is always very valuable. And then his ability to actually, it's always weird watching him because I can never always tell. I think, really, is he going to tear through an opposition lineup? And consistently, the first few wickets, he gets them nicked off with the ball, just doing enough off the surface. I think actually sometimes we can watch bowlers on the telly and see them hooping at miles. I think this is great. Patterson is someone that holds his line and just gets a little bit of nibble, and I can guarantee you he'll be getting a lot of openers caught by the keeper and first slip. And it's that ability to do that consistently, or quite often quite long spells as well, that makes him a real valuable member of the Notts side and a key part of the bowling line, actually.
Let's turn from bowling in the county championship to batting wise now. One man who always intrigues me when I'm talking to Notts fans is Hassi Vermeer, because obviously he previously was at Lancashire and he got dropped out, had a tough few years here. It really feels like he's starting to bounce back at Notts now, finding his form, finding his place, and it's somewhere which he can call home. How much of an impact has he had over the past few years, and what do you expect from him in 2023?
Yeah, absolutely. He's settled in really well at the top of an Notts ordinary position, which has actually been a little bit weak for us for quite a few years. And he's made that opening spot as a reliable part of the Notts batting lineup his own, and vice captaining of the one day side as well, which I think is a really important role. He's quite young still, but really experienced with them to goes in the England side. And that it is really valuable to have someone at the top of the order who you can know is going to be there for quite a while in terms of balls faced. But actually his run scoring ability as well does make a difference. I think he averages around the 40s for us, which is easily enough in the county championship where you're often got the ball moving around and it's very difficult to open the batting. And it is actually just great to see someone that definitely has the potential, is a really exciting young cricketer, being able to make good for Notts after, sadly for you guys, not having the best time at Lancs in the latter stages there.
Absolutely. Another man who makes a massive impact and has been, both of these people been with England. Hasib Hamid has been with England, but Ben Duckett as well has been in the England side. I mean, he averaged 72 last year in the county championship. That's a stellar record. I mean, just sum up this man for us, and what it's like as a Notts fan watching him week in, week out on a county championship against different oppositions, just dispatching their bowlers.
That is it really with him. For me, I could see that England call-up coming from quite a while away, actually, because he is the epitome of fast ball. He comes in at three, we might have lost an early one. The ball is moving around, and he does not care. He comes out and he smacks it. His cover drive is a thing of absolute beauty. and seeing that often in an environment where the rest team isn't necessarily struggling, but we might have lost a few wickets. That for me is arguably one of Notts' best assets, is that ability to counter attack. Sorry.
All right.
Phrase going. Not ideal for recording a preview. But back to Duckett, that ability to counter attack and score runs quickly and take the game away from your opponents is massive. With that consistent run scoring, and it is going to be difficult with him in the England shirt when we lose him. But we do, I think, have some young talent that's going to come through and hopefully make a real difference when, sadly, he isn't around as much this year. I imagine he's definitely be opening the batting in the test matches. He may well be in the other England squads as well. So he's going to be a big loss for us.
Let's turn then to white ball then, bit of white ball action. Obviously, we touched on the fact that I had a very successful one-day cup run last year, and that's despite the fact you lost a few players to the 100. I wonder, going into 2023 in the one-day cup, do you think Notts can go one better? And what do you think about the side that you put out in the one-day cup? How is it affected by the 100? And do you actually think that you're one of the counties that gets to keep going on in spite of the 100 because you still have a depth and lots of young players who can play in that tournament?
Yeah, I think that is one of the main strengths of Notts. We often get accused of just buying players and not developing any of our own. But the Notts Academy in recent years have done a real good job, and you can see that reflected in our performances in the One Day Cup. The likes of Liam Patterson-White, who's a really exciting left-arm spinning all-rounder. Lyndon James, who offers a bit of a ball, but he's also very impressive with the bat. But that mix of that youth with the odd experienced player who maybe doesn't quite make the cut to the 100, so bowlers like Brett Hutton, and Hasib Hamid, as we mentioned, as captain of that side. They do a real good job, and it's not always the side that looks the most scary on paper. There's not someone that's going to blast 100 off 50 balls or rip through you with some thrilling spin, but they are a solid team performance. And I think, especially given the calibre of the white ball players at Notts that don't make it into that side because there are 100 people like Hales, Clark, Duckett, they do a really good job, and I think we are quite lucky at Notts in the sense of being one of the bigger counties with one of the bigger budgets, but we can afford to compete in this competition where other counties are not quite as lucky. And it is always nice to be able to try and push in that competition. Notts quite a proud record for a white ball side. I believe we won Roland and World Cup in 2017 as part of the double, and being able to compete there is a mix of having a few experienced players but giving chance to a lot of youngsters. And a lot from diverse backgrounds as well, which I think is vitally important in cricket, especially after some of the scandals we've seen in recent years. Young lad Fatih Singh, who bowls spin and absolutely smacks it, and he is going to be a player to watch in the years to come as well.
Absolutely. One man in the One Day Cup who did very well last year, looking at your averages, averaging 56.69, was Ben Slater. Now, I wonder what you think is in store for him in this season ahead, and also, do you think he'll continue to dominate in that one day tournament?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Ben Slater. He's often someone that slips under the radar, actually, and he opens the batting with Hamid in the Championship and has a solid time for Red Bull. But I was really pleasantly surprised by his form in Royal London One Day Cup. That solidity of average in the 50s in that competition is vitally important because it allows the youngsters that are coming afterwards, knowing they've got a base and a platform to come out and really try and whack it, which is what you want young players to be doing. And so hopefully he can push on to deliver similar stuff in both white and red ball floors.
Absolutely, and it'll be certainly interesting to see how he goes. Let's turn then to the final tournament, which we haven't talked about, which is the Vitality Blast, fifth last year in the North Group. The North Group, as we know, very strong group. Let's start with Alex Hales, because he's the man everyone wants to see. He's the man integral to white ball. When you think about Notts and white ball and Vitality Blast, immediately Alex Hales comes into your head. Obviously, you're going to probably lose him at some point, maybe to England, but he doesn't he's not been in and around that side all the time. How nice is it to have someone of his caliber playing in the North group of the Vitality Blast? And what impact do you think he'll have this year? Because he seems to be going from strength to strength, really, doesn't he?
Yeah, he is absolutely a vital cog. And it often, especially at times last year, was quite a disappointing fifth place finish. It feels like if he fires, you not to going to win because he has the ability to just take the game away. I think it was at Derby, he hit 91 off 33 or something ridiculous like that. And you can see it in his approach, actually. The first few balls get a knock, and then after that, the levers come out, and he just launches into everything. And when he fires, it is absolutely thrilling because Trent Bridge, as we know, is a tiny ground, but it doesn't really matter for most of his hits. They are absolutely sailing. I remember last summer sat in a pavilion for one, and I'm in the crowd. I'm always thinking, I could definitely catch it if it comes to me. And there was one that landed a few rows in front of me, and I was taking cover because he absolutely nails them. And he is such an integral part of that Blast side, which hopefully we were a little bit unlucky, a couple of close finishes last year, but fifth in the group is probably not good enough for the calibre of white ball batting we have. And if he and the other firepower at top have a more consistent year, then perhaps we can push and, well, we should be able to push and go further this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. And one person who had a breakthrough in 2022 for Notts and has re-signed for 2023 is Calvin Harrison. Now, I think people might know him from the 100 as well because he had a good time with the Manchester Originals. But in terms of Notts in Vitality Blast, he's become quite the sort of star, really, in terms of that side. What do you think about him? And do you think he'll just keep accelerating in 2023? Keep going on in that tournament?
Yeah, I think ideally he's a real fascinating young talent. Actually, he broke through, had a little few games for us in 2021, and then real solidified his place last summer in what was quite a hot summer. Him in a spin attack with Samuel Patel and Matt Carter. And Harrison, I think the advantages for his leg spin is his height. He's not a huge turner of the ball actually, but the bounce he gets makes him a real threat because actually trying to knock him off his length with that bounce is quite difficult because you can't really control the shots as well. And that's often how he is getting people out, is they just cannot time a shot down the ground against him. In terms of his development, the leg spin is impressive. The other thing that is interesting about him is he does have batting ability. He got a 100 in a university match against Notts, which was why he was then signed. And we didn't quite see much of his hitting at the death last summer in what is obviously a very difficult role. But if he can really push on, and especially if it's another hot summer, then you could see him playing a role in the Blast especially, but maybe even pushing his way into the Red Bull side. I think our game at Somerset is at the end of June. So if it's been hot until then, I would not be surprised if we go with two spinners down there to try and combat the square turn that I imagine our batters will be struggling to face.
Absolutely, yeah, that'll be certainly one that'll be very interesting to watch. I can't talk about Notts and Vitality Blast without bringing up Samit Patel, can I? I mean, he is a veteran, I think it's fair to say, but he always seems to have an impact. Are you expecting more of the same this year as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It is consistently, I think, surely Patel can't have another good year, and he does. He is something else, really. His batting is not quite what it used to be, but his bowling has come on leaps and bounds, actually, and he's gone from something that you say would smack it in the middle order and bowl a few overs to almost the opposite, actually. Can maybe rescue in a bit of a collapse, but actually he's going to bowl 4 overs for not very many runs. We used him quite a lot in the power play last year, and he was turning the ball quite a lot, quite a few stumpings off him. And it is really quite fascinating. He's absolutely loved by the crowd down at Trent Bridge. And biggest cheer of the night is when Samuel Patel was announced as on the team sheet, and provided it continues to spin, which Trent Bridge has for a good few years now, he will definitely be a key cog in our Blast campaign.
Absolutely. Right, let's turn on to your one to watch, the person who you think fans of other counties, but also fans of Notts should be looking out for this year. Who are you going to choose and why?
Difficult question. There are 3 that come to mind, so I'm going to do 2 honourable mentions and then give you my full proper one to watch. Liam Patterson-White, who for an orthodox left-arm spinner averaged 27 with the ball last year and 23 with the bat, very useful. Lyndon James is a young, up-and-coming batting all-rounder, 52 with the bat last year and very promising going forward. I think good defensive technique. However, the one to watch is Mackie Montgomery, who is actually from South Africa and signed for Notts, having studied, I believe, in Loughborough University and played well against us in a friendly. He made 178 against Durham last game of the season to confirm our promotion, batting at 3, replacing Duckett, which is obviously not the easiest task in the world. And so, as I'd expect Ben Duckett to be out for most of the season with England, Matt Montgomery is someone that has almost a poise about him batting that you think he's done this for a lot of time for a guy that's only played a handful of first-class matches. And so, going forward, I think you can get our big names out maybe. If you haven't got Matt Montgomery out, watch out is my message to all the county fans.
Oh, absolutely. Fighting talk. Let's bring the fighting talk back to earth, or maybe not. Let's get your predictions in finally. And we'll start then with the County Championship Division 1. It's a very strong Div 1 this year. Where do you see Notts finishing?
Yeah, this is where the fighting talk has to be slightly derailed, because as confident as I am in our Red Bull side ability, it is going to be very difficult making that step up. The change in quality of cricket, I think we do see in quite a lot of the stats between Div 1 and Div 2. That said, we do have a very strong side and we do have a lot of depth. And provided we don't have too many England losses and get a good start to the season, I think that's really key for us. I think pushing for the title is probably a bit beyond us, but I expect us to be in that mid-table scrap. So we'll go for a confident 4th place.
Okay, 4th place. So that's quite, a bit conservative. Let's see whether you go any further in the white ball side. Let's go for the One Day Cup then. We talked about how you got knocked out by Lancashire in the quarterfinals last time. Do you think you're going to get, I keep bringing it up, do you think you're going to get to, I shouldn't do really when I watched us lose at Trent Bridge on the final, but I'm going to anyway. Do you think Notts are going to get to the knockout stages of that competition and possibly have a home finals day at Trent Bridge?
Home final would be absolutely lovely. I'm not quite sure if we have enough strength and depth to go all the way. I imagine quite a few of our players who performed well in the last maybe get picked up as 100 wildcards. I'm worried that we're going to lose a bit more strength. But I think getting out of the group again would be an expectation. If we can push on further than that in the knockouts, I think that would be a success overall. So I will say, let's say semi-finals. Let's say we're going to do one better and go optimistic on this one.
Absolutely. And then finally, the Vitality Blast. We've talked a lot about how you have a lot of strength power hitters in your side and you're not to be messed with. That said, Vitality Blast North Group, very crowded, lots of good sides coming into their own this year. Where are you going to put them and why?
Yes. The North Group is very difficult, other than that Lancashire side who are horrific.
You're banned. That's it. End it there.
Scrap. I think the addition of Colin Munro as overseas should help solidify the batting. I'm still slightly worried that we don't quite have the depth bowling. We did get smacked around a fair bit last year. However, that said, the Blast is our competition. We've won it twice. We are regular knockouts. And so I'm saying finals day, bare minimum.
Wow, very, very nice and optimistic and fighting talk to end on. Sam, thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's been a pleasure. We're progressing nicely with these county previews. If you enjoyed at home, please do give us a like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.